Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be looking at how sociologists actually study the world.
Okay.
You're interested in learning about all the different methods they use, and I think you're going to find it super fascinating.
Yeah.
It's this mix of systematic scientific investigation
Right.
and some seriously insightful ways of just observing and understanding human behavior.
You know, a lot of people, when they think about sociologists, they just think about observing people in their natural habitat.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a part of it.
Sure.
But the reality is that sociology relies on a really structured scientific approach.
Okay.
That might remind you more of like a chemist in a lab.
Really? I have
Right.
to admit, when I think sociology, I think like more analyzing trends or conducting interviews,
Right.
not beakers and test tubes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the foundation of a lot of sociological research is actually the scientific method. So just like in other scientific fields,
Okay.
you start by asking a question.
Okay.
Let's take an example. Does increased unemployment in a city lead to a higher crime rate?
Okay, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
So how would a sociologist actually go about investigating that?
Well, they might start by looking at existing data
Right.
on unemployment rates
Sure.
and crime statistics
Gotcha.
for a particular city over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would formulate a hypothesis
Okay.
based on their initial observations, predicting that if unemployment rises, then the crime rate will likely increase as well.
So they're looking for patterns and relationships between these different factors.
Exactly.
But how do they actually test that hypothesis?
Right.
I mean, they can't just manipulate unemployment rates in a city like it's a science experiment, can they?
You're absolutely right. And that's where the unique toolkit of sociological research methods comes in.
Okay.
They have a variety of approaches, each with its own strengths and weaknesses, depending on the type of question they're trying to answer.
All right, let's open that toolkit. What is one of the first methods we might pull out?
So surveys are a classic way to gather data from a large group of people.
Okay.
You've probably taken plenty of surveys yourself.
Sure.
These can involve questionnaires or interviews or even online polls. They're great for getting a snapshot of people's opinions, behaviors, or demographics.
So think about the U.S. Census.
Exactly.
That's essentially a massive sociological survey we all participate in.
Right.
It gives researchers a ton of quantitative data like age, income, and family size.
Exactly. And surveys can also collect qualitative data,
Oh, okay.
which is more about people's thoughts and feelings.
Gotcha.
So it gives you a richer understanding of the topic.
That makes sense. But what if we want to go deeper than just asking people questions?
Right.
What if we want to observe their actual behavior?
Then we might turn to field research, where sociologists immerse themselves in a specific environment
Right.
to observe people in their natural setting.
Okay.
So imagine a researcher spending months hanging out with a particular group, taking detailed notes on their interactions and routines.
So it's like becoming a fly on the wall, getting a first-hand look at how people actually behave, not just how they say they behave.
I'm going to say.
That reminds me of that journalist who pretended to work at a .com company for 2 weeks to write a book about the experience.
Yeah.
That was field research, right?
It was, and it highlights the links that researchers will go to get really authentic data.
Wow.
And then if we want to take that immersive approach even further, we can talk about ethnography.
Okay, what is ethnography?
Ethnography involves embedding oneself in an entire social community, often for months or even years.
Wow.
It's about understanding their culture, beliefs, values, and practices from the inside out.
Okay.
A classic example is the Lynn study of Middletown. Back in the 1920s.
Okay.
They lived in this average American town for years,
Wow.
meticulously documenting everything from their religious practices to their leisure activities.
Wow.
And it gave an unprecedented look at the everyday lives of Americans during that era.
That sounds like incredibly in-depth research.
It is.
But what if you're not interested in an entire community, but rather a very specific situation or individual?
Right. That's where case studies come in.
Okay.
They offer a deep dive into unique situations, providing rich detail you wouldn't get from other methods.
Okay.
Think of the story of Oksana Malaya, the Ukrainian feral child who was raised by dogs.
Oh.
Her case, while tragic, gave researchers valuable insights into the crucial role of early socialization in human development.
So those in-depth studies can be so powerful because they really bring these concepts to life.
Absolutely.
So we've covered surveys for getting that broad overview, field research for observing behavior, ethnography for cultural immersion,
Yes.
and case studies for those unique situations.
Right.
What else do we have in our sociologist's toolkit?
Well, if a sociologist wants to test a hypothesis in a more controlled environment, they might design an experiment.
So it's like setting up a mini society in a lab
Exactly.
to see how people react to certain conditions.
Exactly. Experiments involve manipulating variables to see how they affect each other.
Okay.
For example, Frances Huson Stem, a sociologist, was curious about whether the Black Panther Party was targeted by police unfairly.
Okay, so how did she test that?
Well, she had participants drive around with either a Black Panther bumper sticker
Okay.
or a neutral bumper sticker on their cars.
Wow.
And then she tracked how often each car was pulled over by police.
That's such a clever way to test a hypothesis.
It
It
is.
really isolates the specific variable they're interested in.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be incredibly time-consuming for sociologists to always be collecting their own data from scratch?
Oh, it definitely can be, which is why secondary data analysis is a valuable tool.
What does that involve?
It means using data that's already been collected by someone else, like government statistics,
Okay.
historical records,
Oh.
or even old movies and TV shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So sociologists can be a bit like detectives, piecing together clues from all sorts of existing sources to uncover new insights. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it allows researchers to build on existing knowledge and explore new call-ins without having to start from scratch.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about how sociologists use the scientific method, and we've explored their diverse toolkit of research methods,
Right?
from surveys and field research to experiments and secondary data analysis.
Yep.
It's clear that sociologists have some pretty fascinating ways of getting to the heart of human behavior and social trends.
They do. And now that we have a grasp of how sociologists approach their research, we can move on to some of the key findings that have emerged from these investigations.
Sounds good.
So with all these tools at their disposal, sociologists have been able to uncover some really interesting insights about how societies function, how people interact, and how social structures influence our lives.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to hear about some of these insights. What are some of the key discoveries that have come out of sociological research?
Well, one area where sociology has made significant contributions is in understanding social inequality. Through various research methods, sociologists have been able to document and analyze patterns of inequality based on factors like race, gender, class, and sexual orientation.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It seems like these issues are constantly in the headlines. So how has sociological research helped us understand these complex problems?
For example, studies have shown that racial disparities exist in areas like education, healthcare, and the criminal justice system. By using methods like surveys and statistical analysis, researchers can highlight these inequalities and explore the underlying social forces that contribute to them.
I'm guessing this research has been crucial for informing policies and interventions aimed at addressing these issues.
Absolutely. By providing evidence-based insights, sociological research can inform policy decisions and help shape strategies for creating a more equitable society. It's about moving beyond assumptions and opinions and really understanding the root causes of these disparities.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you can't solve a problem if you don't fully understand it. So what are some other areas where sociological research has had a big impact?
Another fascinating area is the study of social change.
Okay.
Sociologists are interested in how societies evolve over time, how trends emerge, and how social movements gain momentum.
I find this topic super intriguing. It feels like the world is changing so rapidly these days.
Yeah,
How do sociologists even begin to study something that's constantly in flux?
it's definitely a challenge,
Yeah.
but they use a variety of methods to track these changes,
Okay.
including historical analysis interviews and even analyzing online data.
I hadn't thought about using online data to study social change. Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's say a sociologist wanted to understand how public opinion on climate change has shifted over the past decade.
Okay.
They could analyze social media posts, news articles, and online forums to track how the conversation has evolved, what arguments are being made, and how different groups are engaging with the topic.
So they're using the digital trails we leave behind to understand how our collective thinking is changing. That's really clever. Are there any other areas of sociological research you think are particularly relevant to our listener?
You know, I think the study of social networks is particularly fascinating.
Okay.
It explores the web of relationships we form with others and how these connections influence our behaviors, beliefs, and opportunities.
Okay, so this is about more than just our friends on Facebook.
Right. Sociologists are interested in all sorts of social networks, from families and workplaces to online communities and even entire nations.
I can see how understanding these networks would be valuable in so many contexts. For example, if you're trying to promote a new product,
Hmm.
understanding how information spreads through social networks would be crucial.
Exactly. Or if you're trying to understand why certain health behaviors like smoking or exercise habits tend to cluster within certain groups.
It seems like once you start thinking about the world through a sociological lens,
Hmm.
you start to see these patterns and connections everywhere.
That's the beauty of sociology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It opens up a whole new way of seeing the world and understanding the forces that shape our lives.
Okay, so we've covered some of the key insights that have emerged from sociological research, from understanding social inequality to exploring the dynamics of social change in networks. What's the one big takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that sociology is all about challenging assumptions. It encourages us to question what we think we know about the world and to look for evidence-based explanations for why things are the way they are.
I love that it's about moving beyond those knee-jerk reactions and digging deeper to understand the complexities of human behavior and social structures, and I think that's something we could all benefit from in today's world.
I agree, and while we've only scratched the surface of this vast and fascinating field, I hope it sparked some curiosity in our listener to explore these topics further. I'm sure it has. It's been a fascinating deep dive into the world of sociological research. And I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for how sociologists study the world. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear what our expert thinks are some of the most exciting frontiers in the field today. What are the big questions that are keeping sociologists up at night? So we've explored how sociologists approach their research and some of the really incredible insights they've uncovered. But now I want to look ahead. What are some of the most exciting frontiers in the field today? What are the big questions that are keeping sociologists up at night?
Well, one of the most exciting areas is the intersection of technology and society.
Okay.
You know, the rise of social media, artificial intelligence, and big data is transforming the way we live, work, and interact with each other.
For sure.
And sociologists are grappling with understanding the impact of these technologies on everything from social relationships and political discourse to privacy and inequality.
Yeah, it feels like we're living in a constantly evolving digital landscape,
Right.
which must make it both fascinating and challenging for researchers.
Absolutely.
Are there any specific questions within this area that stand out to you?
Well, one question that researchers are exploring is how social media platforms shape our perceptions of the world
Okay.
and influence our opinions, with algorithms curating our news feeds
Right.
and creating these echo chambers. Are we becoming more divided,
Yeah.
or are we finding new ways to connect?
Yeah, it's like this real-life social experiment unfolding in real time.
It is.
Wow.
Another question is how automation and artificial intelligence will impact the future of work.
Sure.
Will robots take our jobs, or will they create new opportunities?
Right.
How will these changes affect social class structures and economic inequality?
Yeah, those are questions with huge implications for all of us.
Absolutely.
What about the ethical considerations surrounding these technologies?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like there are a lot of gray areas when it comes to data privacy surveillance and the potential for algorithmic bias.
You're absolutely right. And this is where the insights of sociology are more important than ever.
Okay.
Sociologists are asking these critical questions about who benefits from these technologies, who's being left behind, and what steps we can take to ensure that these advancements serve humanity as a whole.
I think that's what's so important about sociology,
Yeah.
is that it forces us to think critically about the world around us,
Yes.
to not just accept things as they are.
Exactly. It's about understanding the social forces at play and recognizing that we have the power to shape our own future.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of sociology.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how sociologists study the world and the incredible insights they've uncovered.
It's been a pleasure exploring these topics with you.
And to our listener, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the power of sociology.
Me too.
It's a field that offers not just knowledge, but also a way of thinking, a lens through which to view the complexities of the world and our place within it. If you're interested in learning more, there are tons of great resources available. Check out some introductory sociology books, explore online articles and podcasts, or even consider taking a class. There's always more to discover. And who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to conduct your own sociological research one day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep those sociological lenses polished and those critical thinking caps on.